Hi everybody, welcome to week 4 of our summer session 1 course, Sociology 2301, Social Problems. We are in the home stretch, only 2 short weeks left of this class, and that's it. It's going to be a wrap. So this week, week 4, we are going to be addressing social problems pertaining to gender and sexuality in society. This is always one of my personal favorite topics to teach on. A lot of my research specializes on inequalities pertaining to gender and sexuality, so it's tough for me to pick and choose what specific topics and articles and videos we should watch this week because there's so much different content we could cover. So this week we are going to focus on 3 areas. The first social problem we're going to take a look at is related to toxic masculinity. So examining the ways in which we socialize or condition boys and men in our society to resort to violence, to suppress their feelings or emotions, because we're taught from a young age in American society that to be vulnerable if you're a man, or to express any type of emotion or anything that could be labeled as feminine, is bad for us to do. And society has come a really long way, especially just in the few recent decades, about kind of breaking into these barriers that have really been restricting to men. So we're going to look at the ways in which teaching men that they are not supposed to have feelings, that they're always supposed to be tough and rough and mean, can have really negative consequences on men's physical and mental health. And so we're going to look at that through the lens of toxic masculinity and see how masculinity is correlated to violence in our society, especially through violence of murders and mass shootings. Next, we're going to talk a little bit more about gender inequality and misogyny specifically, so the disadvantagement and mistreatment of women and femininity in our society. We'll take a closer look in gender inequalities pertaining to the workforce. Many people are unaware that to this day, women, specifically white women, only make about 80 cents to the man's dollar. Women of color earn even less than that. And the reason why women are still disadvantaged in the workforce, despite the reality that women are now actually overperforming men in education, just has a lot to do with our society's history of patriarchy. Our society was built in a fashion that enabled men to have privilege and power. So we'll explore many different avenues through which women are still experiencing disadvantages in our society, and we'll also talk about some of the massive improvements our society has seen in terms of advancing gender equality. And then the last module this week is focusing on inequalities pertaining to the LGBT plus community. So we'll look specifically at homophobia and transphobia. In this folder specifically, I'm asking you to watch what I think is a really wonderful documentary film called The Gender Revolution. It's only about an hour and a half long, and it does a really good job of kind of breaking down at a pretty simple level some of the complexities of being a sexual or gender minority in the United States today. So I know a lot of times people get confused with the LGBTQIA plus alphabet soup long list of string of letters representing all these different identities. So I have a few readings in here to help break through some of that language and some of those terms if you're not familiar with that. If you are familiar, some of this content might be a little bit of just a refresher for you. So a lot of really interesting topics to cover this week. Your only assignment for week 4 that is due this week is your weekly discussion posts. So as is every week, your weekly discussion EOP is due this Thursday. Your comments are due this Saturday. I'm also encouraging you in the to-do list for week 4, if you have not already, to begin working on your final project for this course, which is called the Solving Social Problems infographic. If you go into the course content, you will see that there is a separate content folder for your final project here. I provide detailed instructions about what this project is. There is a very specific document here with guidelines and the grading rubric that I'll be using to evaluate this infographic. If you've never made an infographic before, if you don't even know what an infographic is, do not panic. I explain everything in step-by-step instructions in this instructional video here. The software, the website that I'm asking you to use to create your infographics is very user-friendly. I threw one together in a matter of a couple of hours. Of course, it is going to take a little bit of time for you to do the research on the social problem that you're interested in, to collect the data points and the solutions that I'm asking you to include in this infographic assignment. And again, all of that is very clearly explained in this document, the guidelines and grading rubric, as well as in this instructions video. So I would encourage you to start thinking about this project. If you haven't already, definitely choose a topic by this week. And if you have time, start working on your infographic, simply because next week, week 5, is going to be a very busy week for us. It's our final week of the semester. You have one more week of content that we're going to be getting through, so you still have a weekly discussion assignment. You also have your second and final exam for this course, and then your final project is due. And the last day of the semester is Friday rather than Saturday. So you have one less day to get all of that done. So that's why I encourage you, if you haven't already, it would be a good idea to start putting some time and effort into this project, just so you're not overwhelmed with the final week of class and our final assignments. Also, something important to keep in mind, if you feel like you are getting really stretched thin, especially next week with our final week with a lot going on, remember that I do drop your lowest weekly discussion grade at the end of the semester. So we have 5 weekly discussion assignments, 1 for each week of the class, but only your top 4 grades will actually count towards your final grade for this course. So if you're super overworked and overwhelmed and you think that you've performed pretty well on your first few weekly discussion posts, if you want to skip week 4 or week 5 just so you're not overburdened with work, that is an option, because again, it will not be held against you that you would just take a 0 on week 4 or week 5, whichever week you missed, and then your 4 other weekly discussion post grades would count towards your final grade. So something to keep in mind. As always, if you have any questions, either working through the content or getting started with your Solving Social Problems infographic, please feel free to reach out via email. I'm happy to schedule WebEx meetings via request, and I'm here to help you get through these last few weeks of this course. All right, take care and stay safe, everyone. Have a great week.